In 1896, there was one particular event that became the shortest war in the history. Yes, the shortest war in history between Britain and Zanzibar. And they managed to fight a war that lasted just 38 minutes. Yes, you heard me right, 38 minutes. Shorter than a football match, shorter than a Friends episode. But beneath this comedy of its length lies a serious lesson in human psychology, which you can either implement or avoid when it comes to business negotiation, between your personal relationships, and even in your jobs. You can either avoid them or implement them to get an edge. So, here's what happened. On August 25, 1896, the Sultan of Zanzibar died. His successor should have been someone who was approved by the British Empire, who held strong influence in the region. But another contender, Khalid bin Barghas, rushed into the palace and declared him as the Sultan. He fortified this place by 3,000 men. And Britain saw this as unacceptable and gave him an ultimatum: step down or face the consequences, die. Khalid refused. The next morning, Britain turned up with their warships, opened fire. Within 38 minutes, the palace was destroyed. Khalid fell and the war was officially over. The shortest war in history, recorded history. So what are the psychological factors that we can learn from it? Why did this even happen? The answer lies in psychology. First thing is ego and pride. Khalid couldn't back down. Stepping aside meant humiliation. And for most of the kings and even leaders, investors, whoever you take, those who are in power, for them, dying is much more better than handling humiliation. Knowing that you had the palace, but you choose to step down instead of fighting. Humans are wired to protect status even at an irrational cost. The second psychological factor that influenced this war led this war was status quo bias. Once he claimed the throne, Khalid felt he had to defend it. Psychologically, we cling to what we already possess, even if it is holding destruction. Khalid knew that if he would claim the throne, if he will hold the throne, he would certainly die, definitely die, but still he held to it. And he died. The third thing is overconfidence bias. Khalid believed that his men and palace defenses could withstand Britain's fire force. He knew that they had hundreds or even thousands, millions of men in their army, but still he believed that he could stand their firepower, their forces, their weapons. He overestimated his position, something leaders, investors, and everyday people do all of the time. We overestimate ourselves, and that's why we lose most of the time. The fourth and last one is loss aversion, the most common one. People fear losses more than they value equivalent gains. And not even equivalent gains, lesser or maybe higher gains. So let's say, for example, that you would regret losing 10 rupees more than you would value gaining 500 rupees. That's how loss aversion works. So Khalid risked total ruins just to avoid the loss of stepping aside. He sacrificed his life of 500 men, just to avoid stepping aside. So, what you can do and what you can learn from this 38-minute war. The first thing is in business. Leaders who let their ego control their decisions often destroy deals and companies. Negotiation requires compromises, not pride. You cannot walk along like a really egoistic individual and can win in business. You cannot. You have to sometimes step aside, or you have to sometimes create a common ground. You have to negotiate. That is one of the most important factors when it comes to business, when it comes to dealing with people. Even in jobs, you need to understand that sometimes you have to create a common ground, or sometimes you have to step aside to win. Social life. You might have ever had the argument with a friend or might be your partner that spiraled just because neither of you wanted to lose. The same work at psychology. The same works at business. The same works at your workplace, everywhere. your friends and partner, all of them wants to win, no one wants to lose. So they just keep on arguing, keep on arguing, keep on arguing until the relationship between both of them is destroyed. Avoid this. The third thing is personal growth. Sometimes the bravest move isn't fighting, it's walking away. Protecting your pride at this cost is far more than swallowing it. So basically, what I would suggest you is to understand all of these psychological concepts that we talked about and try to implement them and try to identify the things that you're doing and just avoid them if you possibly can. And maybe you can implement some of them in some way that can possibly benefit you and even the other party. With that, you can have best of both worlds. So the 38-minute war is remembered as the historical oddity, it's oddity actually. But beneath this lies a quick defeat and a timeless truth. Ego is expensive. Wars, deals, relationships, all of them. All collapses in minutes if pride outweighs the reasons. So you have to understand and think really rationally and pragmatically before you make any kind of decisions. So the next time you find yourself locked into a standoff, ask yourself, am I defending something real or just protecting my ego? Understand this from a really pragmatic point of view, from a really practical point of view, and from a really rational point of view, and then make any decisions that you make. So that was all for today. See you in the next episode with some new effect.